Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghouldoon. Today we're going to be continuing our Digging Up the Past series with AFR through Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty. So this is where I really started digging in, me personally, into dragons, because Commander Legends Baldur's Gate was so packed with dragons, and the next set that we're going to cover that's going to be jam-packed with just almost exclusively going to be the whole video pretty much. Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate is so packed with dragons that it's so almost too many to count. Just be prepared, because that's going to be a long video. If you're not going to sit down or going to have enough time to listen to a long video, you might want to go on ahead and be prepared to skip next week's video, because it's going to be a doozy. There's like 50 plus dragons. So let's go on ahead and get into this video, which is probably going to be a whole lot shorter compared to that one, with Baldur's Gate Commander Legends. So starting off, we're going to have a white dragon, and every dragon cycle in Baldur's Gate is going to have a uncommon, a rare, and a mythic, except for black, which I don't know why, but it might just be something that deals along with lines with D&D, kind of, sort of. But we're going to just go on ahead and continue. And this is where we start seeing a lot of the, named abilities. They're naming the ability on the creature. So starting out with White Dragon for 4 generic and 2 white. It's 4/4 with flying, and it has the ability Cold Breath. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. The creature doesn't untap during its next untap step. Nadar Selfless Paladin for 2 generic and a white. It was a legendary creature Dragon Knight. It's a 3/3 with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, venture into the dungeon. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. Icing Death, the Frost Tyrant, for 2 generic and 2 black. It's 4/3 with flying and vigilance. Whenever it dies, create Icing Death Frost Tongue, a legendary white equipment artifact token with equipped creature gets +2/+0, and whenever equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and equip 2. Not that bad. Moving into the blue with Blue Dragon for 5 generic and 2 blue. It's a 5/5 with flying, and it has the ability Lightning Breath. When Blue Dragon enters the battlefield, until your next turn, target creature and opponent control gets -3/-0, up to one other target creature gets -2/-0, and up to one other target creature gets -1/-0. It's kind of like a staggered, a stunning ability where, if you're struck by lightning, you're not going to be that strong anymore, I guess you could say. Dragon Turtle for 1 and 2 blue. It's a 3/5 with flash, and it has the ability Drag Below. And when it enters the battlefield, tap it, and up to one target creature an opponent controls, they don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So it's kind of like the white ability, kind of, sort of. Emereth, and y'all can let me know down in the comments below if I'm really just screwing these names up. I was never big into D&D, me personally. The local game store of where I live actually is a great game store. Don't get me lying, but they focus more on their D&D side. So I've never really got into D&D, but I still played Magic there, and they still hosted Magic tournaments and everything. So they still sold Magic cards. So I still go there. It's just I don't do the D&D. But yeah, so I don't know all the D&D character names. Emerith, the Desert Doom, for 3 generic and 2 blue. It's a 5/5 with flying, so 5 for 5. 5 mana for 5/5. Not bad. Has Ward 4 as long as it's untapped. So if you give this Vigilance, it's just unstoppable. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then if you have fewer than 3 cards in your hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So if you could just cycle through your hand fast enough, you could just keep drawing 2. Excuse me. Which is still pretty cool. And then we have Black Dragon for 5 generic and 2 black. It's a 4/4 with flying and the ability Acid Breath. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent control gets -3/-3 until end of turn. And this is the skip from uncommon straight to mythic. We have Ebon Death, Dracano Lich, Draco Lich, where there's no N. For 2 generic and 2 black, it's a 5/2. Very off statted, but kind of on cue for a zombie. It has flash and flying when it enters the battlefield tapped. And you may cast it from your graveyard if a creature not named Ebon Death died this turn. So that doesn't mean a creature you control. That's any creature. So if this is your commander, guess what? You just cast it on your opponent's turn, and now you have a flying blocker. Which could be pretty good. I actually kind of like that idea. Now we get into the red dragons, Jaded Sellsword, and this is where we see a lot of the dragonkin of the dragonborn and stuff like that, and dragons that are more humanoid. Jaded Sellsword for 3 generic and a red. It's a 4/3. Enters the battlefield if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, against first strike and haste. Oh, that's actually pretty cool, and it kind of rolls in with the flavor text. It's like you're talking to him. Today, that'll cost you extra. Like, you want to hire me today? You want to do a job today? It'll cost you extra. Red Dragon for 4 generic and 2 red. It's a 4/4 with flying and fire breath. When Red Dragon enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. Then we have the back of the video back for this video. Wow, that's horrible. Inferno of the Star Mounts. I decided to use this one because it's a very powerful, very strong creature from this set, and I feel like it's gonna go into the deck that I want to build. So for 4 generic and 2 red, it's a 6/6, and it can't be countered, but it can be sent back to your hand while it's on the stack. So that's that. It has flying and haste, and it has an ability for a single red. Inferno of the Star Mounts gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When its power becomes 20 this way, it deals 20 damage to any target. So you have to get 220. But if you already have it at like 12, do you still like pay 8 into it and get 20 damage to any target? I mean, its base the base doesn't change. I'm assuming that it works that way because no matter what, say if it's a 19/19, right? And you pay a single red and it just deals 20 damage to any target. It's pretty good. And then you could remove the equipment and do it again because its power went down. That's actually pretty neat. Green Dragon for 4 generic and 2 green. It's a 4/4 with flying and poison breath. When it enters the battlefield until end of turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage, destroy it. That's actually pretty neat. That will go in a lot of force fight decks where you can just kind of fight the biggest creature out of the way with a 1/1, and because it was dealt damage, it just destroys it. Doesn't matter if it's bigger or smaller. Wandering Troubadour. Now this is a word that I know actually kind of well from being in the South. For 3 generic and 2 green, it's a 4/2. At the beginning of your end step, if you had a land enter the battlefield under control this turn, venture into the dungeon. And it's a dragon bard. That's actually kind of funny. Old Gnawbone. Probably one of the most powerful cards in everybody else's opinion from the set. It's a 5 generic, 2 green, 7/7 with flying. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. So even him, when you swing with him, you get the treasure, which is broken and busted as all kinds of get out. I play this in my Corvold deck because there are big dragon lords, and if I'm swinging with 100 1/1s, that's still going to be like 50 treasures. So it'll keep me going to where I need to, win the game. Adult Gold Dragon, and I just love this art. This is just beautiful art. For 3 generic, a red and a white, it's a 4/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste. And then we have the mother of all dragons, Tiamat. Because we know the father of all dragons is the Dragon. For 2 generic, in Wooburg, it's a 7/7 with flying legendary creature Dragon God. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat that have different names. Reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle. And then the flavor text is her speaking. It says, "My children will rule over all." And now we're going to move into some of the sadder dragons, unfortunately. We're going to move into Midnight Hunt with a couple dragons. Purifying Dragon for 3 generic and 2 red. It's a 4/3 with flying. When it attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. If that creature is a zombie, it deals 2 damage instead. Kind of don't like this one, but it is what it is. Smoldering Egg, and I like this one because it's pretty neat that it transforms. For 1 and a red, it's 0/4 with Defender. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a number of Ember counters on Smoldering Egg equal to the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Then if Smoldering Egg has 7 or more Ember counters on it, remove them and transform them. I did not get the transform side. Oh well. Moonveil Regent. Look it up. If you're really just that really avid into looking at it, look it up. It's actually a pretty cool card. Moonveil Regent for 3 generic and a red. It's a 4/4 with flying. Whenever you cast a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each of that spell's colors. Okay, so unless you're playing 5 colors, you don't get shit. Whenever it dies, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. So unless you're playing a 5-color dragon deck, this deals 1 and draws you 1. So probably not that great. Actually, it might be great in Ripley if I wasn't taking it apart. But now we're going to move into Crimson Vow with Mana Form Hellkite. And this dragon kind of just looks kind of weird looking. Kind of Eldrazi-ish, like, to me, maybe. I don't know, the dragons from Innistrad are all kind of crazy looking. For 2 generic and 2 red, it's a 4/4 with flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX Dragon Illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast the spell. Exile that token at the beginning of the next incept. So if you can, like, bolt, dragon, there you go. You got a swarm of 1/1s. So 3, 4, 8, 12. 12 damage. Plus the 4 that you get from this is 16. That's not bad. And finally, we move into Kamigawa with Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa for 3 generic and a white. It's a 3/3 with flash, flying. When it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai. And for Wooburg, it gets +5/+5 until end of turn, so it becomes an 8/8, which is a pretty good rate for what, 3, 4 plus 5 mana. That's 8. No, that's 9. Yeah, for 9 mana for an 8/8 with flash and flying, it's not that bad. Then we have the Dawn Sky, because I've heard so many different pronunciations. I've heard ale, I've heard owl. I just don't know what to say. So you can fill in the blank there on yourself for yourself. But for 3 generic and 2 white, it's a 5/4 with flying and vigilance. When it dies, choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Or put 2+1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle. That's actually pretty cool in a vehicle deck. Kyrie, the Swirling Sky. I think that's how you say it. 4 generic and 2 green. It's a 6/6 with flying and ward 3. When it dies, choose one. Return any number of target non-land permanents with total mana value 6 or less from to their owner's hand, so from the battlefield to their hand. Or mill 6 and return up to 2 instant and or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then we have Junji, the Midnight Sky. This is the nicest art in my opinion. Even though his horns look artificial, it's still pretty nice to me though. For 3 generic and 2 black, it's a 5/5 with flying and menace. When it dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life, or you get to put a non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and you lose 2 life. So it's kind of like a demonic tutor, but for the graveyard. It's not bad. Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. This is probably another one of my favorite ones, just because I like the fire. For 2 generic and 2 red, it's a 4/4 with flying and trample. When it dies, you can exile the top 2 cards of your library until end of turn. You may play those cards, or you can create 3 treasure tokens, which, you know, all of those are still pretty good options, especially in red. And I know you're saying, oh, well, this is an enchantment, but it flips over into a dragon. So we gotta cover it. Jugan defends the temple. And yes, I did get the front and back of these. When I didn't get the front, I didn't get the back of the smoldering egg layoff. Jugan defends the temple. They're continuing. For 2 generic and a green, this is a mythic. And it's a saga. So lore 1, I don't deal with a lot of sagas. Create a 1/1 green human monk creature token with tap to add a green. Second stage, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Third stage, you exile it and it transforms into Remnant of the Rising Star. Which is a 2/2 Dragon Spirit with flying. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X +1/+1 counters on that creature. As long as you have 5 or more modified creatures, Remnant of the Rising Star gets +5/+5 and has trample. So it becomes a 7/7. Kura, the Boundless Sky. For 3 generic and 2 green, it's a 4/4 with flying and death touch. When it dies, choose one. Search your library for up to 3 land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle, or create an XX green spirit creature token where X is the number of land you control. All very good in a land-based deck, but I've yet to put it in there because it's a dragon, and up to now I wasn't big on dragons. Now I am, so I might have to find the slot for this, or slot this into a couple decks. And now we have the Kami War for 1 in Wooburg, 1 generic in Wooburg. We have a saga. Its first one is exile target non-land permanent or opponent controls. Second one is return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then each opponent discards a card. And then exile it and transform it into Okagachi Made Manifest. Which is actually kind of wild because there's snakes in there too. Don't know how that ties in. I feel like the snakes could have been left out in the art. That's just me. But it is a 6/6 enchantment creature, Dragon Spirit. Okagachi Made Manifest is all colors with flying and trample. And whenever it attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard, return that card to your hand. It gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. So it's sad to say that you'll probably never get a +10/+10 unless you're running like artifact creatures. Or big artifact creatures. And that's the only creature in your graveyard. Oh no, it's a card. a non-land card, so it could be a instant or sorcery too. Yeah, they'll probably just avoid all the big stuff and just like give you back a shock or something. But that is going to be it for today, everybody. I really appreciate everybody that watches the videos, comments on the videos, likes the videos, shares the videos. I couldn't do it without you guys, and I'm so glad that I have everybody that has supported me up till now. And I just couldn't thank you enough. But that is going to be it for today. And like I said, next week's video is going to be a long one. So unless you just really want to sit down and learn about some dragons from 2 sets, you might want to consider skipping the next one. But if you don't, if you're into the longer videos, let me know, and I will definitely try and make longer videos. But that is going to be it for today, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.